Hey guys, I'm going to do a quick preview of the kinds of things we're going to do in this talk in terms of looking at people's work. Um, so I grabbed a piece that of an attendee's, and we're just going to discuss it real quick because he wanted feedback. He sent me work a couple times and said, "Hey, like, how do I get better? What do I do to improve?" And some of the things are super easy, and some of them are a little more tricky. But I'm going to talk about them in terms of this, and we're going to go through what all these mean. But right now, I'm going to keep pointing back to this diagram just so that we're aware of the areas of concept art and which areas specifically we're talking about improving. So for this piece, awesome piece in a lot of ways, has a lot of awesome storytelling that you can tell. This girl and her dad has a Last of Us-y feel, which he said he was going for. It's got zombies coming in. It's clear, that the zombies are coming in through this door. It's clear that she's lit up, so she's a good focal point. Um, but what's happening is an issue of storytelling being the composition and the deciding. I'm going to talk about the choices made being different than what I would do. First of all, I think there's too many stories being told. So this is something we're going to talk about all the time. It's like we haven't even started doing concept art yet. And I can tell you, too many stories being told at once. And what I mean by stories being told are, you have a story of a little girl lamenting her dad, right? So if you were telling that story, then the shot would be this. That's a cool concept. Let's make it widescreen. In a film, you might get away with a shot like that. And she could have fear in her eyes about what's going on, and then you could have clues, let's say, in the environment that say, "Oh, damn it, there is something going on in here." Or let's say that was maybe a little bit, maybe you did want to have some element of zombie in there. Then I suppose you could have a shot that was more, maybe a little bit wider. And you wanted to imply something. Then I suppose something like that could maybe support a giant person that's in silhouette that you can kind of tell is a zombie, but that's cropped. And she would have to be really scared. Does that make sense? Because having it be this far away, let's pull it back out, having it be this far away is just too much story being told in one picture. Like you have these breaking through, so there's the action of them breaking through, that's one thing, which if you were going to tell that story, it would have to be something, again, cropped like maybe like that. And then just have a character like trying to run away from these hands coming through. But whatever it is, this frame, what you have in the frame is what you have in the frame. Does that make sense? Meaning you only have whatever can fill up that shot, and however big it is in that shot is how is going to determine it to a huge degree the impact that you're going to have. So I put a cutout filter on it. Like this is your picture. That. If you put it as a cutout, it really makes it clear, like, why is there all this empty space? Do you know what I mean? Well, the obvious answer, of course I know the answer, and you know the answer. It's because you were doing an environment concept, and you were saying, I want to show this environment. Like, hey, I'm trying to get a job as a concept artist, I'm trying to show the environment. Okay, then you could do that. So another idea for a possible concept, at least, and we're not talking about finish or technique or using 3D or any of the techniques that we'd actually use to make this the most pro way. That's a separate, we'll table that for now, but that's a separate issue talking about all the other things, even sexiness of shape design, all that. But just again, from a storytelling perspective, let's say you did want it to just be about the environment, or your art director said, okay, we need to do an environment piece. That's just about showing off this environment. So we need the camera to be farther back. Because they're going to ask you to do one or the other, right? Well, then in that case, you can't have action. You can't have any action. Because it's an environment piece. It's just a contemplative, wide environment piece. Because film, they'll do an establishing shot, and then they'll do action shots, and then they'll do drama shots, right? The shot changes depending on what's happening. So what we kind of try to do, I'm going to try to get rid of some of the super obvious God rays, which are a little vulgar. What we kind of try to do is to say, what kind of shot are we going for? And if we're going for this shot, an exploratory, like sort of what's the environment shot, then I think, okay, you want to keep the camera this far back, then it can't be this moment of her lamenting her dead dad plus the zombies attacking, because it's two things fighting for attention. If we wanted to just do an environment shot, I'm going to try to add a little light because I got an idea here. Just do a little light right there. Going to I'm going to try to do this as slop quick as I can. I would say then it might be nice to, okay, have someone tentatively coming down the stairs. And maybe their arms are out and then they have a gun in their hand. Does that make sense? Does it make sense why that makes sense for this kind of composition? Because the person is exploring the environment, so this wide shot of an environment makes sense. And then if the person was there, from a storytelling perspective, okay, the story now has changed to person exploring environment, then I feel like this really bright spot here is taking away from that, because they're trying to find out where they're going. Even this might be taking away from that. Now, there could be light coming in, but that amount of light and those really hard focal point areas are a bit much. Could be like more like that. And if you wanted to have another shape here that was lighting up, you could. It's not like you couldn't put light there, but it couldn't be so spotty and conspicuous. See the difference between that? These are like two spots. So these two spots, from a storytelling perspective and compositionally, they draw your eye too much because they're clear focal pointy spots. But that doesn't mean you can't have light, but now that light is a bigger shape, and even having that high contrast doesn't make it super distracting, in my opinion. Again, it's all down to taste, and you could break that up a little bit with some slats. But now that adds just like it adds a shape across the image, because we're trying to fill up the space. So if you were saying to me, hey, I'm kind of stuck with this one kind of money shot, I have to do this wide, but I want to be able to kind of fill it up with interesting shapes. You remember how this was the shape we had of this one here? Wait, let's put that back again. Let me duplicate and do another cutout. Okay, so that's what we had, right? And now, let's duplicate that. You see, now we're like filling up the space. You see now the reasoning behind a person being up there is saying, okay, well, we're stuck with this composition. Then how do we make it design for the entire composition instead of designing for just that tiny spot? And also being confused about what kind of image it is, what kind of story we're trying to tell. Does that make sense? All right, guys, so these are the kinds of, like, really getting into the weeds type stuff. We may not have time to talk about everybody's work for this amount of time, but we'll try to talk about a lot of people's work or focus on one piece, kind of touching on a lot of different people's work, so that everyone is starting to get a sense of the kinds of thinking and decision making that we do, that is even before we've even touched on a second of technique. Okay? Thanks, guys. Looking forward to seeing you on November 14th. November 15th, we're going to be outside doing outdoor painting and doing sort of portfolio reviews. Eytan is going to be doing them as well. He's just as, if not more qualified than me to tell you guys about your compositions and what to change and how storytelling affects them. But we'll see you soon. And tickets are getting close to being sold out, so get on the bandwagon, bring your friends. It's going to be an awesome weekend. All right, talk soon.